Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. With the Election Commission's dispute with the BJP still making headlines, Election Commissioner H.S. Brahma accepts there were serious lapses both by the district magistrate and the commission itself. He also suggests this points to weak leadership at the top of the commission. That's the big interview breaking in part 2. But first, the controversy over Narendra Modi's OBC status. Yesterday, the Congress challenged this. Today, it seems, it may have got it all wrong. So is Mr. Modi owed an apology by his Congress opponents? And now joining me to discuss Narendra Modi's OBC status is Gujarat BJP spokesperson and former Minister Jai Narayan Vyas, Congress spokesperson Amiben Yagnik, Bahujan Samaj Party leader Sudhindra Bhadoria, and the well-known senior journalist from Lucknow, Sharat Pradhan. Amiben Yagnik, yesterday your spokesperson Sakti Singh Goel claimed Narendra Modi is a fake OBC. He said that Narendra Modi had manipulated the OBC list after becoming Chief Minister to include his caste, the Modh Ghanchis. It turns out Mr. Goel is completely wrong. Doesn't the Congress party now owe Narendra Modi an apology?
No, Mr. Thapar, if you see the circular dated 1/1/2002, it clearly shows that this entry was made on that. Earlier it was only Ghanchi Muslims, and then Modh Ghanchi has been entered into this particular circular, which is a detailed document. Of course, there was a recommendation from the central government, and so it has come. But he is definitely not Modh Ghanchi, and this entry shows that he is a fake entry here, and he is claiming his status very wrongly.
Now, Mr. Vyas, in response to Mr. Goel's press conference, your finance minister Nitin Patel said that the Modh Ghanchis were in fact included in the Gujarat OBC list in July 1994 when Chabil Das Mehta, a congressman, was heading a Congress government. Mr. Patel also said that they were included in the central OBC list in September 2001, which is a whole month before Mr. Modi became Chief Minister of Gujarat. Those facts are critical, but they're being disputed by Amiben Yagnik, who says that those earlier details only apply to Muslim Modh Ghanchis, not Hindu Modh Ghanchis. How sure are you that what Mr. Patel said applies to Hindu Modh Ghanchis?
Well, Karan, at the outset, let me tell you that they have clearly goofed up. The government resolution which was issued way back in 1994 during Mr. Chabil Mehta's tenure, and subsequently the Gujarat list of OBC in which Modh Ghanchi has been included, there is nowhere such a classification of Muslim Modh Ghanchi. There is entry 25B which reads Modh Ghanchi, that's all. It doesn't read Hindu or Muslim. It is the matter of their own creation that they are now having been exposed. In the first instance, they said Modi himself has done this. Now that it has surfaced that it was done during Chabil Das Mehta's time, where Mr. Shakti Singh Goel himself was a minister in that ministry, now they are trying to find some excuses and wriggle out of it. So they stand absolutely and very badly exposed.
Let me go back to Amiben Yagnik. Amiben Yagnik, you just heard Mr. Vyas make clear that the 1994 circular issued by Chabil Das Mehta, a congressman heading a Congress government, referred to simply Modh Ghanchis. It did not differentiate between Muslim and Hindu Modh Ghanchis. And secondly, this is something Mr. Goel should have known because he was a member of that government. Where do you come up with this distinction that 94 only referred to Muslim Modh Ghanchis and that Hindu Modh Ghanchis were only added in 2002 after Mr. Modi had become Chief Minister? Because your whole argument hinges upon being able to prove that this distinction is a real one. What's your proof?
Mr. Thapar, the document which is of 2002 also mentions in the lower portion of the circular that it is in continuation of earlier paripatras of 1968, 1999 and 1998, again 1999, and in continuation of that this entry has been made where we may not go because by the word Hindu is missing in this added one, but Muslims is added here in the column which is very clear at the top, and so There is no question.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you? When you say Muslim, Amiben Yagnik, stop a moment. When you say Muslims are added in that column, which is very clear at the top, what year is that document?
This refers to the old document, that in the earlier document, this was added, this was already there, Ghanchi Muslims. And in this 2002, we are adding Modh Ghanchi. If you see it, you will find it that this has been a later addendum in 2002 Paripatra. This shows that it was only after Mr. Modi came to power in September, this entry was made, and this entry has been silent for 13 years in Gujarat. It has come up because a clarity.
Let me stop you there. Let me go back on this critical point to Mr. Vyas. Mr. Vyas, there is a document that Amiben Yagnik is showing. Unfortunately, neither you nor I can see it, but she's claiming that in fact Muslim was added as an entry to distinguish between Hindu and Muslim Modh Ghanchis earlier, and therefore the 1994 entry is only with relevance to Muslim Modh Ghanchis, not Hindus. Can you effectively refute that point?
Two things, Karan. Number one, I would still rely upon 1994 government resolution, where on page 2, wherever it applies to Muslims, for example, the entry 57A, it reads Dandai into bracket Muslim. There is like similarly 76A, where there is a bracket clarification Hindu. So wherever it was like this, there is a clarification already in that circular.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you? Can I stop you there? Before you blind me with details that confuses the audience, what you're saying to me is that where the circular wanted to define categories as Muslim and where the circular wanted to define other categories as Hindu, it says so. But when it refers to Modh Ghanchis in 94, it neither says Hindu nor Muslim. Therefore, you're saying it applies to both. Is that the point you're making?
Absolutely, Karan, and I would further qualify it by saying that I have seen, and I think most of the channels have shown, his brother's interview, Sombhai Modi's interview, where he has shown a document issued by the collector Mehsana, the district to which Mr. Narendra Modi's native place belongs, certifying him as the OBC as per the classification of 1994.
And what year was that document?
So I don't think that is any room
what
for
year
this
was
kind
that
of,
document? What year was that document? What year was that document? The document the brother has shown, what year is it?
The document is, the document is the certificate issued by
what year is it? Mr. Vyas, listen to me. Listen to me before you answer. What year is it?
1995.
Okay, that clinches it from your point of view. Let me bring in Mr. Pradhan, because we have a very interesting, technical, but nonetheless critical dispute between the Congress and the BJP over this question of whether the Modh Ghanchis, when they were included in 94 by Congress government, were all Modh Ghanchis, or whether in 94 only Muslims were included, Hindus being brought in after Mr. Modi took over. What do you believe is the truth? Because both sides are hotly disputing each other, and the truth or the falsehood of Mr. Goyal's claim hinges on this question.
Very true. As a matter of fact, from your discussion just now, it is very evident that when in 1994 they just talked about Modh Ghanchis, it's very obvious. I would agree with what Mr. Vyas was trying to point out, that they obviously included the Muslims and Hindus both. Because wherever the need arose, they have specified Muslims and Hindus. So I think that is a subsequent addition, is that of describing both Muslims and Hindus being a part of that OBC section.
So just to sum up for the audience, you're saying two things: that the view and interpretation given by Mr. Vyas is the correct one.
So it appears, absolutely.
And the second thing, therefore, you're saying is that the accusation or the charge brought by Mr. Goyal doesn't stand up, it's false.
I don't think it stands up at all. As a matter of fact, the Congress rose to the occasion only after Mayawati tried to draw this attention to the fact that she questioned Mr. Modi's OBC status.
And therefore Congress decided to do so as well.
Exactly, to take advantage.
So would you therefore also then say that Mr. Goyal or the Congress party owes Mr. Modi an apology.
I think under the circumstances, you're absolutely right.
Let me bring you in at that point, Mr. Bhadoria, because in fact, Mr. Gohil went one step further at that press conference he held yesterday, claiming that Mr. Modi is upper caste. Mr. Gohil said, and I'm quoting, "It definitely is a crime to put upper castes in the OBC category for selfish reasons," and then cried discrimination. He, meaning Modi, has committed a sin and he should apologize to the country. And clearly Mr. Gohil was deriding Mr. Modi and Mr. Modi's claim to be OBC. Do you think this is a second reason why Mr. Gohil owes Mr. Modi an apology?
Well, let us put this whole debate in the proper social and political context. See, Mr. Modi, who is invoking his caste status today, in 1989, when the Mandal Commission was being implemented in Delhi by VP Singh, who was the Prime Minister at that time, same Mr. Modi was up in arms, and the BJP was responsible for bringing down the VPC government for giving the Mandal reservation in this country.
Mr.
And
Bhadoria,
they were leading the Ram Yatra.
Mr. Bhadoria.
One moment, let me just complete. Yes, let me just complete that they have been historically against the backward caste, and they have been always for Mandir agitation on
Can I stop with that? Mr. Bhadoria, time is of the essence. I can accept the point you're making that Mr. Modi, who today takes pride in being OBC, at the time of the Mandal agitation was against the special status for OBCs, and therefore there's an element you're suggesting of hypocrisy in Mr. Modi's position. But that is a very different point to what Mr. Gohil made. Mr. Gohil was actually questioning whether Mr. Modi is an OBC, and on that point, I'm saying he may be owed an apology.
Please let me complete. Let me please complete that this is opportunism of the highest order that he is exhibiting.
Maybe, but that is still a different point. Mr. Bhadoria,
he was against invoking caste.
Yes, maybe, I don't deny it, but that is a different point, Mr. Bhadoria.
Each and every election meeting,
Mr. Bhadoria,
he is saying, maybe jaat kya hai?
Mr. Bhadoria, listen to me. You may be right in saying it's opportunism. You may be right in saying Mr. Modi is exploiting his caste status. But that doesn't deny the fact he has that caste status. We're not talking about exploiting it, because Congress isn't talking about exploiting. Congress made a claim that he is not OBC. And Mayawati, forgive me, your leader, has also got angry on those counts.
Age-old reality. Mr. Karan Thapar, please let me complete. Caste is an age-old reality. It is 2,000, 3,000 years social order. Mahatma Phule, Baba Sahib, Bhimrao Ambedkar.
What has that got to do with Mr. Modi and being OBC?
But Mr. Modi ideologically never wanted to empower the backward caste.
We are not politicians quarreling with each other. We're trying to understand the point. Get to the point. That's what this program is called. Come to the point. The point is, are you accepting or denying he's OBC?
He is today, he has usurped this status just for political mileage. He has no conviction whatsoever.
Maybe.
And he deserves to be shown his place.
Well, you may be right that he's exploiting it, but that doesn't deny he has it. And that's the point we're making. Let me go back to Ambi Binyak, because we're talking. No, Mr. Bhadoria, someone else now should have a chance. You've had enough. Someone else deserves a chance. Mr. Bhadoria, if you don't allow someone else to talk, I'll have to ask my producer to switch off your mic. Ambiben Yagnik, let's come back to the facts, because the critical fact in dispute is the claim made by your Mr. Gohil that in fact Mr. Modi is not an OBC. The second critical fact in dispute is that Mr. Modi manipulated things to get his caste included after he became Chief Minister. It seems the facts are against you. It seems that your attempt to target Mr. Modi has boomeranged on you, and now a lot of people think that in fact yours is a party that doesn't care about the truth. Isn't this now an embarrassment for Congress?
No, Mr. Thapar, when this whole issue came up, I think let's just take us 30 seconds to just find out why this whole thing has erupted in this fashion. When Neech Rajniti was mentioned, he he correlated that with, or he just related it with Neech Jati, which was not the issue. He just distorted those two words and he just got it to that level.
You're doing something very similar to Mr. Bhadoria. You're also answering questions that haven't been asked. This has got nothing to do with Mr. Modi misunderstanding or misinterpreting Neech Jati. It's got nothing to do with that. He may have misinterpreted Priyanka Gandhi, but that's a different issue. We're talking about whether he's an OBC.
That is why this clarification.
Come back to that.
That is why this clarification, the truth had to be shown that he does not belong to the OBC. This is the Paripatra, this is a government record which shows that this has been made, this entry has been made only in 2002 and he does not belong to this level. But he has tried to show to the country by using this card to get political mileage, to get votes when he is talking about this in North India. So this is a fact which we have just brought to the nation, before the nation, that this is the truth and you may just see what is the mansikta, what is the way the person is behaving when in a certain situation.
Let me bring you in at this point, Mr. Vyas. What both Mr. Bhadoria and it seems Ms. Yagnik are actually saying is that Mr. Modi is being opportunistic. He is suddenly emphasizing his caste status because he believes he can get votes out of it. In fact, Mr. Bhadoria is saying that he's exploiting it for political purposes. At the time of the Mandal agitation, Mr. Modi, Mr. Bhadoria claims, was at the forefront of those who didn't want OBCs to get special status. Therefore, there's something opportunistic, exploitative, and if not hypocritical about the stance Mr. Modi's taken. How do you answer that point?
Well, two things, Karan. First is, I do agree with Mr. Bhadoria that the caste structure is an age-old phenomena in this country. But he should know that OBC is 1990, post-1990 phenomena. It is not age-old phenomena. And that list is dynamic.
Come to my point.
To additions and also subtractions.
Mr. Vyas, so come to the question I asked. Come to the question I asked, that Mr. Modi is being A, hypocritical because he was against Mandal, and B, he's now exploiting something that's come almost like a gift from God for political purposes. He's not committed to OBCs, he's just using it for the political benefit it can give him. Answer that.
Well, his commitment to OBC, I think one has to see the kind of works he has carried out for the benefit of the OBC in Gujarat. I don't think that one can question him on that count. His credentials are very bright and very clear. So I don't want to deal with it at this juncture because it will be a very long discussion.
That's fair.
Having said this,
I take your point.
The fact remains, Karan, I again harp upon the thing is that the fact remains. Whatever were his views or whatever was his stand, the fact remains that he is an OBC and he falls within the categories defined.
Let me bring in Sharad Pradhan on that, because I have Mr. Pradhan with me.
Economically and socially backward classes, what is wrong in it?
Let me bring in Mr. Pradhan. A moment ago, when there was a dispute over facts, Mr. Pradhan was able to sort it out for us by telling me that in his belief, he believes you're right and Ambi Ben Yagnik is wrong. Now there's a dispute over whether Mr. Modi's exploitation of his OBC background, even his hypocrisy because he was against Mandal and now he seems to be stressing his Mandal credentials, whether that undermines the case about being an OBC. Do you believe it does?
I don't think it does at all. As a matter of fact, if he is exploiting this situation, I think which politician doesn't do it? In a political scenario, in an election, what do people do? Just because this person is Modi, so he should not be doing it. As a matter of fact, every time he does, when it is Priyanka Gandhi who started it, he instantly he has a knack of turning every disadvantage into an advantage.
So what you're saying is very critical. You're saying regardless of the fact that he's exploited it and he may even be hypocritical in his attitude to being an OBC, that doesn't undermine the fact that he is an OBC.
That doesn't undermine the fact at all, and even I wouldn't call it hypocritical in the sense there is something, if he was like that in 1989, times have changed. You know, your attitude could change, your thinking could change.
A man is got the right to evolve in his views.
Certainly.
Now, Ambi Ben Yagnik, I'm going to move on beyond just that OBC point, because actually Sakti Singh Goyal's press release, and I'm going now by his press release, not his press conference, went one step further. It actually had other amazing things to say about Mr. Modi, and I'm going to quote to you. This is what the press release says. Modi is projecting himself as a man who used to sell tea in his childhood, but this is an utter lie. The fact is, he used to sit in the canteen of one of his relatives to spend his time. What proof does Mr. Goyal or Congress, because he is an official national spokesman of the Congress party, have of this?
Mr. Thapar, there is everyone here in Gujarat knows that the RSS Karyalay in Ahmedabad is near the ST bus stop, bus corporation bus stop, which is in the heart of the Ahmedabad city. And everyone knows that it was in this particular canteen of the RSS Karyalay that he was passing his time with the tea vendor who was the contractor, and he belonged to his family. It is everyone's common knowledge here.
Can I stop you?
Shakti Singh has
Can I
said you
stop
don't
you?
have proof for all this.
No, just
you
a
don't
moment.
have
Just a
proof for
moment.
all these things.
No.
But this is a fact, and this is a fact. But that should not be an issue.
No,
because we
just a
don't
moment.
have to
It
go
is
on
an
that
issue. I have to stop you. You can't make a serious allegation that a man is not a chaiwala when he claims to be a chaiwala and takes pride in being a chaiwala on the grounds that everyone knows he wasn't. That's not a basis on which you can refute someone's claim. You have to have proof.
Valid point.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Vyas. I'll come to you in a moment. Let me finish with Ambi Ben. You have to have proof if you're going to try and disprove something. You can't simply disprove something by saying everyone knows it. So I'm asking you again, what is Mr. Goyal's proof for claiming Mr. Modi is not a chaiwala and that he only spent time sitting in a contractor's canteen?
But we don't have anything else except his word also, the Prime Minister's candidate's word that he was a chaiwala. We don't want to get into that. The fact remains that when you are a PM nominee, you are going to rule this country, you have these aspirations, you have to be very honest about whatever you have done in your life. You have to tell the country.
He may well be being honest. Your doubts may be misplaced.
Which has been shown that it is not the right thing.
Okay.
And so if this picture is put before them, either side doesn't have proof.
Just a moment.
And so
I'm going to stop you there. I think it's only fair Mr. Vyas comes in. Mr. Vyas, the question I want you to answer was actually enunciated a moment ago by Ambi Ben Yagnik. She says, we may not have proof that he's not a chaiwala, although everyone knows he was only sitting in a contractor's canteen, but equally, Mr. Modi has no proof he was a chaiwala, it's only his word. So I'm going to ask you precisely that. Does the BJP or Mr. Modi have any proof that he is a chaiwala?
Well, Karan, Congress are caught in their own cobweb. You know, you divide this thing in two parts.
No.
They are
Answer
talking
my
about his
question before you
childhood.
go to 2 and 3 parts. Do
No,
you
I'm
have any
answering.
proof
Karan,
that
Karan,
Mr.
please
Modi
be with
is
me.
a chaiwala,
Karan,
or
yes,
are you asking us to accept his word?
I am giving you the proof. Please be with me. Please have a patience for 30 seconds. You know, in his childhood, he was not sitting in that canteen they are talking about. It was during his collegiate days when he was with RSS headquarters, he was sitting there. That was his relative's theka, and he was sitting there. During his childhood, Karan, his father was running a small chai shop on Vadnagar station, and he was helping his father. And if one cares to see 7 Racecourse Road,
do you have proof of that?
Yeah, I am coming to that. I am coming to that, Karan. If somebody, I am telling you, Karan, that if you see 7 Racecourse Road, meticulously documented by Chetan Bhagat, there are people from Vadnagar meticulously recollecting how this old man was selling tea there and how this young child during the recess came to his running to his father's tea stall
proof from other
and helped
parties.
him.
All right, let me bring in Mr. Pradhan again. Once again, I'm going to ask you to act as umpire because this is a very interesting dispute. And it's not to do with Mr. Modi's OBC status, it's to do with his claim that he's a chaiwala or chaiwala's son. Ammi Ben Yagnik says that we have to accept Mr. Modi's word, and she's not prepared to accept it. On the other hand, you've got Mr. Narendra Modi saying that there is anecdotal proof from other people who saw him and claimed that this is the truth. Where do you think the truth lies? Not that it's a major issue, but they've made it a major issue, so I'm going to ask you this.
It was started by Mani Shankar Iyer, who took the chaiwala issue, raised the chaiwala. Now the point is that if at all their allegations, there was any truth in their allegations, why did the Congress rise to the occasion now at the fag end of the election?
They should have done it earlier.
They should have done it earlier. Then I think they are getting rattled over what is happening in Varanasi and of course in Eastern, a large part of Eastern.
One other question before I go to Mr. Bhadore. Are they just rattled over what's happening in Varanasi, or do you think they have trouble handling Mr. Modi's chaiwala status, and so not knowing how to handle a chaiwala who's suddenly looking as if he's going to be prime minister, they're questioning the chaiwala status?
So it appears, because it was the issue had cropped up only after Mani Shankar Iyer talked about giving him a place to run a chai shop. And now, you know, if this man has been able to exploit that all along, what is it now at the fag end? How are they going to do any damage control?
Mr. Bhattacharya, let me bring you in here. You know, Mayawati and your party are a Dalit-based party. One would assume you're a party that has great support and sympathy for OBCs, and one would assume that you would have great support and understanding for people who are chaiwalas or sons of chaiwalas. But far from Mayawati actually supporting and being sympathetic to Mr. Modi when his OBC status or his chaiwala status is under attack, you seem to look upon it almost as if it's a challenge to you as well. Why aren't you more understanding of chaiwalas and less questioning and less doubtful?
You see, Mr. Modi is not the only one who is an aspiration for the highest position for the prime ministership. There have been prime ministers earlier who have been from the peasant background and from a humble background. Number one. Number two, what we are objecting to is that Mr. Modi's sudden realization, till 52 years of his age, he was an upper caste elite Hindu, and suddenly he realized after the agitation was over, many people toiled, many people died, and then he suddenly realized that he has to somehow acquire this status.
Okay.
The status which did not belong to his community for thousands of years. He misused this opportunity to acquire an upper caste person acquiring a OBC status,
right.
a Shudra status which did not belong to him.
Right.
And therefore, Bahan Mayawati ji has very clearly stated that Modi will be stopped from becoming, we will not let him become the prime minister.
All right,
that's and then
our
you will see a lot of regional parties.
Let me stop you there.
Lot of regional parties and
Mr.
parties
Bhattacharya, let me stop you there.
OBC and poor community.
I think it's only fair Mr. Vyas should have an opportunity to respond to what you're saying. And once again, Mr. Vyas, it's the same point being made about Mr. Modi's chaiwala status as was made earlier about his OBC status, that Mr. Modi is exploiting it. The point made very tellingly by Mr. Bhattacharya is that for 52 years of his life, Mr. Modi never talked about being the son of a chaiwala. He didn't talk about being OBC either. Suddenly now, when it's politically opportunistic to do so, when he can get advantage from doing so, he's brought this chaiwala status to the forefront, just as he's brought his OBC status to the forefront. In other words, these are convenient tools for political exploitation, and it's not a commitment to being a chaiwala or an OBC that matters, but the exploitation of it. And that, in other words, suggests a certain opportunism, if not even hypocrisy. Answer that.
Well, Karan, let us first understand. It was Manishankar Iyer who wanted to humiliate him for his modest background.
Come back to my question.
Out of that humiliation, the response, you know, which politician will not respond? You know, he has turned the table on Congress.
No. Come back to my question. My question was not how he is responding to Manishankar Iyer. My question is he exploiting chaiwala as he is exploiting OBC?
You know, yes, it is. He has used it. And I think Mr. Modi deserves to be congratulated for that. He deserves to be appreciated for that.
Are you saying,
somebody who wanted to belittle him?
Are you saying that Mr. Modi needs to be congratulated for dredging up a status he forgot about for 52 years and now using it effectively for political purposes? In other words, he's become a master politician.
My dear
is that
friend,
what you're saying?
52 years, this 52 years argument is sheer senseless, because OBC's definition came only in 1990.
All right.
Anybody who was born before 1990 will always acquire this status.
All right, Mr. Vyas.
He cannot get the status by the birth.
Let's leave it there. It's only fair and fitting, since Mr. Modi, in a sense, is in the dock in this issue, that you should have the last word on this subject. My thanks to all four of my guests for joining me. And if you have been, thank you for watching this particular part.